You know what? Parenting comes with shame because people are freaking insecure. They're insecure about their own choices, so they're gonna shame yours because it makes them feel better about their own. Hey. Okay, one of the topics I keep getting requests for is the pressure that parents are under. This is so relatable, but also I feel like it's gotten worse with social media.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Like, it's just non-stop. And then the stuff we see on there is so fake.
Right,
I hate to say it as someone who's on social media all the time, but I think that's one of the reasons from the beginning. Like, I was like, we're not going to show motherhood as perfect or life as perfect.
Right, totally.
So gosh, it's heartbreaking to me, the amount of emails and comments I see, and we've gotten voicemails just from people who are like overwhelmed by this constant pressure. And I think some of it comes from us, right? Like our own, we set up this fantasy when we decided to be parents of like, what it would all look like. And then it's not going to look like that because we're never going to live up to a fantasy because it is a fantasy, which by definition is not reality, right? But then there's so much pressure from the outside world. And I think when my older two kids were little, I didn't have social media. It was like parenting magazines giving me all kinds of advice, or like, people in my neighborhood or family. But now it's just nonstop.
Yeah, you're constantly trying to keep up with all those perfect parents you see around you and the perfect pictures.
Yeah, which that doesn't exist. Nobody's perfect.
Right.
Even that perfect mom on social media that you're like, she's so perfect. She's got 17 children and they all behave. And in every photo, like family photo, all the children are staring straight at the camera and they're all smiling. And you're like, what is she drugging them with? Because your kids are like picking their butts and noses in every family photo. And then after breastfeeding all 17 children, her boobs are still optimistic. And I don't know, some of ours are a little more sad. They're just sad. Even that perfect mom on social media, she's got her stuff. In fact, my theory is that those perfect parents on social media, they have the stuffiest of stuffs. They got the kind of stuff you don't want to have. Because I think there is a level of, I need to hide all my chaos and all my flaws and all my insecurities and how imperfect my children. I need to hide it. And so they go out of their way to paint this perfect picture. I'm not accusing everybody out there whose family seems perfect on social media of doing this, but come on, can we just normalize like the fact that parenting is freaking hard?
Right.
Can we also normalize like allowing ourselves to have bad parenting days? Can we normalize not enjoying being parents every day? Like not enjoying being a mother 100% of the time does not mean that you don't love your children 100% of the time.
Sure.
Like there is not a second since I became a mother, of my mother journey, there is not a second that I did not absolutely love and adore my children. Yes. Even when we went through really hard stuff with my oldest son, struggling, and some of the ways his struggles, the behaviors that showed up during those struggles that were just so volatile and difficult, and the sleepless nights and all that stuff, like from birth to now my older two are in their 20s. There is not a single second that I did not absolutely adore and love my children. But you know what? There have been seconds and minutes and hours and days and weeks that I did not enjoy motherhood. Even while I was loving my children completely, I was not loving motherhood.
Sure.
And I remember years ago, because I was one of the first like mom content creators back however long ago that was. And I remember making a video about not loving being a mom every day, loving my children, but not loving being a mom. There was like an article written about it. I forget what magazine did like a whole interview with me because it was so appalling and shocking. I feel like now it's a little more normalized, but back then, geez, it was like I was a horrible person for admitting that. So I think we need to normalize not enjoying motherhood every second. Doesn't mean you don't love your children or fatherhood. Not being great every day, like normalize having really bad parenting days where we just freaking screw up a million times. I mean, I've never met a perfect parent. I'm not a perfect parent. So there's just so much pressure. And
then I also feel like, and this, I think social media also highlights this too, this pressure to be able to afford all the things that other people can afford, like that great vacation, or even if you're talking about those photos, the pressure to even be able to afford a photographer, a professional photographer to come and take pictures of your family.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I saw somebody actually do an entire post right before Christmas apologizing to their followers that they're not going to do a family photo this year. It's just too much and they're not going to do it. And it was like the way the video started, I actually thought this person was going to be like announcing that they did something horrible, that they said something racist. Like I thought it was going to be like this very serious thing. And then I was like, I'm really sorry that we're not going to be. And then I thought this has got to be a joke. And it wasn't. And I'm like,
weird.
Nobody cares, first of all. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but I'll tell you from my own experience. When I have posted like a really great day with my kids or, some photo that's been taken by a professional photographer, sure, there's some comments that are like, cute, blah, blah, blah. You know what people actually crave and want? When I have been vulnerable and open about the worst of the worst days. That's what people want to hear about. And we need more of that. And I'm glad it's changing. I do feel like it's changing on social media. But the thing you're talking about not being able to afford stuff, this always breaks my heart, especially around the holidays or, when it comes to like celebrating a kid's birthday. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy for people that can, afford these big things and do these great things and make things special. And I am somebody who can afford more now than I could before. And I love doing the things for my kids. But I just think if you're going to post that, balance it out with other stuff, because I don't know. I have this like, I think it's because of my poor days. I have a heart for parents who are constantly seeing on social media things that make them feel less than. It breaks my heart sometimes.
And I think the majority of people honestly can't afford a professional photographer, for example, or maybe if they do, they're putting something else to the side that others can't afford or that others could afford.
But even like just everyday stuff. So I'll tell you a story from when my kids were little. So a lot of my followers know I went through a divorce when my older two kids were 1.5 and 3. So really little. And I ended up really broke. I couldn't afford an apartment just for us. I was sharing a small room with my kids. I actually slept on the floor. My friend gifted my children a bunk bed. I slept on the floor next to them until a friend finally, I don't know after how long, gave me a mattress. And I had a roommate in the other room because again, I could just rent a room. And I was on food stamps and I was just really struggling financially. And I remember my daughter going to a play date and coming home and telling me how the girls' room was like how beautiful this girls' room was. And the thing that stood out to her is that this girl had, I don't know if it was like from Pottery Barn or one of those expensive places, her name, like these beautiful wood letters that spelled the girl's name on the wall. And my daughter's eyes were just like, so, just lit up, like describing this. And as a mom, I couldn't even enjoy like the story as it is. Like I couldn't just hear it because in my mind, my brain start telling me, you're not good enough because your kids don't even have their own rooms. They don't even share a room together. They share a room with their mom and it's so small that you can't afford even like fun furniture. Like it was like a bunk bed, me, and then I think we had like one small dresser and that was it. And I remember that night staying up all night. My roommate had these like magazine subscriptions that would come. And so I asked her if there were any magazines she didn't need anymore and she was going to recycle. And she gave them to me. And I remember staying up. I don't know why this is making me cry because I've told this story before, but I remember staying up and just cutting out like colorful letters of Luca. Just cutting the letters out. And then I put them on the wall in the room. And I mean, it looked like a kid did it, right? Because it's nothing special. It's just letters cut out of magazines. And I was trying to like pick really pretty colors and all that. And I put it up there on the wall and I felt like such a loser. Like I was like, well, I did my best. That's the best she's going to get because I'm a loser mom. And I wish that I had a camera at the time or like an iPhone. I had one of those stupid flip phones, but I wish I had a way to record my daughter's reaction and my son too. When they woke up, they were so excited. Especially she was so excited because she had just told me about this. It meant the world to her. Not one time did she say, yeah, but mom, they're not big wood letters like my friend has. She was just so happy with that. And that's the thing. Like we feel this pressure. I felt pressure. That mom wasn't even trying to put pressure on me, right? That was my own insecurities and my own stuff.
Totally.
We feel this pressure because we compare. And I learned from many, many, many different stories like that, you know what, maybe my good is good enough. Maybe what I can do is good enough. Another story that just came to mind. I had a friend who worked at Starbucks and he noticed that when the foods would, you know how they sell like pastries, like bagels and stuff like that. When they would go stale a little bit, they immediately couldn't sell them. So they weren't like moldy or bad to eat. They just were a little too old to sell and they would just throw them out. And so he asked his manager, he said, I know this single mom who would really appreciate this stuff. Instead of throwing it out, could I actually bag it up and give it to her? And the manager said yes. And I'll never forget my friend, Dave Babcock, would come I think it was like Fridays, and he would bring me this Starbucks paper bag and it was filled with these things that they weren't selling anymore. And so my kids and I would eat that. And obviously at the time I'm feeling like crap. Like what a awful mom. I'm feeding my kids, this stuff that they won't even sell to people that's supposed to be in the trash. Okay. So years pass. And when Luca, my oldest, was in high school, I think he was like 17, maybe. This was like years after the Starbucks thing. He goes one day randomly, hey, mom, remember how when we were little, you used to feed us like those croissants and bagels, and sometimes they were like kind of hard to eat and stale. And I'm like just dying inside thinking, oh, here we go. He's going to tell me what a horrible mom I was. I'm expecting the worst. And I go, yeah, I remember. And he goes, Mom, my friends got such a kick out of me because I was hanging out with them the other night and he was at some kid's house and his mom had left a baguette out and it had gotten stale and it was hard. And Luca was like, oh, can I have some? And the kid was like, you don't want to eat that. That's like trash. And Luca picked it up and he was like chewing on this hard piece of a baguette. And he's like, they were all laughing at me, but it brought back memories. And he's laughing. He's got a huge smile on his face. He's not blaming me for anything. He's not feeling like his childhood was ruined. He was like, I loved it. I like totally brought me back to those days. And I immediately started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, all these years I have felt like a crappy mom because I was feeding my kid these, stale pastries. And here my kid's memory is like, oh gosh, that reminds me of my childhood. How funny is that? And I still like, eating stale stuff. That moment healed me. Like it healed me in such a way. And that's another example of like pressure that I was putting on myself. Although, let's be honest, the world is cruel and judgmental.
Yes.
And if, I hid that stuff from people, but like if I had told, people, other parents in my kids' school, oh yeah, by the way, I feed my kids leftover Starbucks stuff that's supposed to be in the trash, I would have gotten judged for it. But anyway, I just thought of that and wanted to share it if there are parents out there who are like, my gosh, I'm really sucking and I'm, and comparing themselves to what other kids are getting and what other parents are providing. So often what we think is trash is actually more than our kids need. And, my kids felt loved. They always felt loved.
So what if, this is just a question, sometimes my kids, they don't mean to, and they're not trying to put pressure on me, but especially the younger ones, they might say something like, well, why can't we do that? Or why can't we go there? Or why can't I have that? Or can I have that?
Yeah.
Could I have one? And if the answer is, well, I can't afford that or something, then what would you, I don't know. What do you say?
I mean, I had to say that a lot, right? Because there were times when we would be at, a grocery store somewhere and my kids wanted something and I didn't have enough. And so, yeah, we're going to have to say no. But here's the thing. Why do we feel guilt and like bad parents saying no to our kids when if we give even if I had all the money in the world,
yes.
right? If I give my kids everything they want, what is that teaching them about life? Because when they grow up, they're not going to have everything they want and they're not going to have it in that moment. And I think the problem is that we parent, first of all, I already had insecurities about being poor. And so when my kid would ask me for something that I couldn't give them, that was just like highlighting my insecurities, right? Just like even more. I would be like, see, here's evidence that you suck, and I had to, and I wasn't good at this at first because I had such a low self-esteem and I really hated myself at the time. And I felt like my kids deserve better, blah, blah. But over the years, what I realized is we are actually harming our children, but by always saying yes and always giving them what they want and always making sure they have what their friends have, because we're not teaching them to sit in the discomfort of, I can't have everything I want, or to learn how to deal with the frustration of I don't get to have this thing I want, or I don't get to have the same thing my friend has. Guess what? I don't get to have everything my neighbor has. I am making good money now. Like I'm not in that space where I'm on food stamps and stuff. And I still can look at my friend who recently bought a freaking mansion, literally, and say, well, I don't have that. And I think if I was raised in a way where I always got what I wanted, man, I would be really unhealthy. About my perspective would be so unhealthy. Now I can look and go, man, I wish I had that, but I don't. But guess what I do have? And I think so in a way, I feel like when you do feel that pressure and you can't give your kids everything, instead of focusing on the guilt of like, now, obviously, I'm not talking about basic needs.
Of course
like hopefully
not,
your
right.
child has safety and has food on the table,
Yes.
even if it's stale
Sure,
croissants.
right.
But as far as like anything that they don't need, a want, why not, instead of beating ourselves up and feeling like, oh, I'm a bad parent or I feel pressure now that I can give it to, why not instead say, you know what? This is such a good gift I'm giving them because I'm teaching them how to sit in these emotions that they're going to have to deal with later. And if they don't learn to deal with them as a kid, think about how negatively it will affect their mental health. If what the first time they're having to deal with not having something they want is in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Oh dear.
Right? So yeah, I had to say no to my kids a lot. But what I wish I knew back then when I was hating myself is, this is good for your kids. This doesn't make you a bad parent. This is actually a really good learning lesson for your kids.
And if you lead with love anyway, they're going to feel so much love. It's better than anything.
And I will say, in the moment, yes, they might whine and complain and, they might even say mean things to you that are hurtful because kids don't always know how to, regulate themselves and how to express themselves in a healthy manner. Not because there's anything wrong with them or they're spoiled brats, but because they haven't learned yet, right? I feel like in the long term, if they have your love and they have your support, they will see it the way Luca saw that stale bread, right? Another example, not to like keep telling you a million stories from my life, but I remember because we live in Southern California, so every family in Southern California has been to Disneyland, okay? I mean, unless you're really struggling the way I was. I was not. I did not take my kids to Disneyland. And I remember my kids, again, their friends going to Universal or Disneyland or all these. I mean, we have so many like fun places to go in California. And I couldn't afford it. So again, I was always trying to figure out like, what's our interesting thing? So I would take them on these picnics. And it was so, again, at the time I was like, this is so lame. I'm basically taking a blanket and some sandwiches to a park. But I was trying to make it fun. I would like take cookies or sandwiches and I would cut them up into like puzzle pieces. And so they'd have to put the puzzle together.
That's so cute.
And what's crazy is that's what they remember now. They don't remember, Mom, you never took us to Disneyland when we were 5 years old. They remember, oh my gosh, do you remember when you did that sandwich thing? And then we were not allowed to eat the sandwich until we got the puzzle piece together.
That is a cute
so
idea.
Again, long term. And we made a video about this actually, about like long-term happy versus happy now, right? Like there are things that you're going to do or say that are not going to make your kids happy in the moment. But in the long term, they're going to see it differently, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I say that to say the pressure that we feel, some of it is our own invention, right? We should be better. We should be perfect. We should be this. And then a lot of it comes from social media. And I am begging everybody listening, you have to stop comparing. You have to stop comparing. I will say this about comparing. I recently had somebody send me a DM on Instagram, and they said something like, I have only 300,000 followers and you have, over 1 million. And it's so hard for me because I'm like working so hard to get to where you are and blah, 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 blah. And I forget what the rest of it was. But all I could think about is you have 300,000 followers.
Yeah.
There are people that are like their goal for this year is to get to 100,000, 3 times less than you have, right? And you are just comparing yourself to someone who has more. And it hit me in that moment. I'm like, this is what we do. We only compare to somebody who has more better, right? Like as a single mom, oh my gosh, they can do this and they have this. I never compared myself to the woman who was homeless with her kids, who didn't even have a roof over her head. I never said, oh gosh, I'm so fortunate that I get to share this small room with my kids. I'm not on the street. So I feel like, fine, if you want to compare, like if you can't stop yourself, which I think we're all going to struggle with it at times, right?
Sure.
I just feel like we can get in the habit of switching it off quicker, of like, nope, not going there. The famous quote, comparison is the thief of joy, 100% true, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, let's be fair. If we're going to compare, let's compare fairly. So if you're going to compare yourself to someone who has more, whether it's more followers or more things to give their kids or whatever, you also have to immediately follow it up with comparing yourself to someone who has less.
Great idea.
That should be the rule.
Yeah.
Because I think if we put in that kind of perspective, that's the only way to actually be fair, right? And it's a way to remind ourselves, my gosh, like even at the time, would I want to go back to living in that tiny room against food stamps? No. But when I look back now, like we had what we needed.
Yeah.
Like my kids were never starving, Yes, I worked multiple jobs and I was exhausted. But you know what? I still had time to read them that book when I tucked them in or, just love on them or take them on that picnic. So perspective is so huge.
Sure.
And I think also comparing, but also just like giving into that pressure kills the perspective, because the pressure we feel from the outside world, again, it can be from anything, right? Social media, it can be from, your mother-in-law. By the way, mine's great. So if my mother-in-law listening to this, it's not about you, Judy. We love you. We're all getting bracelets. What would Judy do? WWJD.
Oh, good idea.
But whoever the pressure's coming from, it's literally destroying any sense of like joy and peace and just be able to enjoy what is.
So we have had people put some questions on social media, and there's one that's very similar to what you're talking about. She said, I feel a lot of pressure from a relative who is constantly giving me unsolicited advice. So what would you say? Your relative is constantly giving you unsolicited advice.
A relative who's constantly giving you unsolicited advice. These are fun. Here's what when I was on tour, somebody asked this during a Q&A, and I said, okay, when you're around somebody that you have to be around with all the time, like a relative, you're going to see them at least on the holidays. Maybe it's someone you see them more often, and they're constantly giving you unsolicited advice. I would just look at them and say, that's interesting. I'm going to give that some thought. And then don't give it a second of thought. But what I find that when someone's constantly giving you unsolicited advice, if you get into defensive mode of like, no, we're doing this, it just ends up being an argument, right? Or you feel like you have to defend, which is awful. Well, the reason I do it this way, well, la, la, la. And then all your insecurities start talking, which also not healthy. You're not going to shut them up. Like, I'm assuming at some point, even if a conversation happens where it's like, please stop telling me what to do, they're probably not going to, because there are people that just think they know it all. By the way, usually those people, I think, are the worst parents, because if they're doing it to you, think about how much they're doing it to their adult children. And And maybe it's your mother doing it, so maybe it's you're going through it. But I just think like it's so freaking annoying. So I would just look at that relative and I would go, that's interesting. I'm going to give that some thought. And then don't give it a second of thought. But that way they feel heard and validated. There's no you defending yourself. There's no you arguing with them back and forth. It's all useless. It ends the conversation right there.
You know, I heard someone say recently that people have these roller coasters that they get on. Like if she's getting, this is a roller coaster she's on trying to tell you how to parent, but you cannot get on that roller coaster. So often we just think we're supposed to get right on that roller coaster with someone else, and they're going to take you somewhere you don't want to go, you know, with lots of drops and twists and turns, and it's going to go very fast. So do not get on the roller coaster. You stay with your feet on the ground.
I love that. Don't get into just unproductive discussions and then limit as much time as you can with those people. Oh my gosh.
We have a couple other questions.
Yeah, go for it.
So we had another woman who said, why does parenting come with so much shame from others, even when I'm genuinely trying my best? And I don't know if she's talking about on social media or friends or...
I mean, it's insane, right? This is what I never understood about, especially parents judging parents, which that's what I think mostly it is. I actually think it's most the judgment the parents get is from other parents. And I don't get it because we're all in the same boat, right? Like we're all very well aware how hard and exhausting and awful parenting can be at times. So why would you judge another parent? Like we should be all walking by each other, just like eye contact. You got this. Stay strong, right? But instead there's so much judgment. And I think it comes from those own people's insecurities. I'm going to tell you a story. I actually shared this in my first book, Hold On But Don't Hold Still. So I did a video, this was years ago, like probably one of my first videos. I did a video where I just talked about what a hard parenting day I had and how, you know, my kids weren't listening and somebody was throwing a tantrum. I don't even remember the details, but I was basically just going on about what a difficult parenting day it was. And this woman responds and she writes in the comments like, I do not understand you or all these other commenters who are relating to this. My children never behaved that way because I raised them to listen and they respected me and blah, 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 blah. And just like went off shaming me for sharing what a hard parenting day I had and shaming my kids for behaving the way they behaved. And so at that point, I've gotten used to like negative comments. So I just kind of ignored it. Okay. Later that day, and man, is my book near? It's going to take me too long to find the book because I almost want to read it directly.
Which book is it in?
In the first one. Hold on, but don't hold still. It's probably in the Mind Your Own Motherhood chapter. This has never happened to me. I get a message on social media and this woman goes, hey, I saw your video and I saw a comment from whatever that woman's name is. And she goes, that is my mother. She wrote that comment. And then this woman goes on to tell me how she thought that we were perfect little children because that's what she needed us to be, because the most important thing to her was how people saw her. But we were not perfect children. We did awful things behind her back and blah, 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 blah. And she either didn't know or the things she found out, she was in denial about because again, her ego and reputation came first. And now I think the woman said by now she was like maybe in her 30s or whatever. She goes, my siblings and I, none of our are close to our mother because she put so much pressure on us to be perfect. And it never worked. We don't open up to her. We spend as little time with her as possible. Anyway, if you read my first book, you read the story, because I'm butchering it right now, I literally quoted it in the book. Mm-hmm. But is that not the perfect example of somebody who's like trying to shame me? I don't think I'm the first person that person shamed, right? That person probably shamed a lot of people in real life, social media, everywhere. Mm-hmm. And in reality, her kids can't freaking stand her. So often that shame, the shaming, the judgment comes from people's own insecurities. And we cannot carry it with us. If you've been following me for a while, you've probably heard me talk about this a million times, the analogy I have with the suitcases. I'm going to do the short version now, but when someone's judging you or shaming you, the way I think of it, whether it's on social media or in real life, wherever this woman who's asking the question is getting shame from, it's like they're handing you a suitcase, right? Because we're all walking around the world with a bunch of suitcases. We got our worry suitcase, our to-do list suitcase, our work suitcase, our marriage suitcase, some of us have childhood trauma suitcases. We all have these suitcases that life has given us that we're carrying. And when someone is throwing that shame on you, what they're basically doing is taking their own suitcase and going, take it, carry it, take it from me. because they don't know how to deal with their own misery. They don't know how to deal with their own insecurities, with their own failures. And they think that pain is like dodgeball. If I hand my pain over to someone, if I throw it at them, then it's out of my hands. But that's not how it works, because being a crappy human will never make you a happy human, right? And so I've learned to literally say no, thank you. And there's a whole nother story in my second book where I talk about how I felt judged by neighbors when I had to call the police on my son. And I remember the words that came to my mind as I felt them staring at the scene in front of my house with the police car. The 3 words that came to mind was, no, thank you. That no, thank you came from my suitcase analogy, right? No, thank you. Because what we have to realize is that most people that are judging you and shaming you, it's not about you. It's not about you. They are insecure, like that woman on my social media who had her own issues, whose kids didn't even like her, didn't even want to have a relationship with her. She's a miserable person and she doesn't know how to deal with it. She obviously refuses to go see a good therapist, which she needs. And so she's going to throw that at me. And by the way, when I've shared this before, people have said, but hold on, Christina. Sometimes we do need to be criticized. We do need to be told, because none of us are perfect. We do need to be called out on. Yes. If somebody who genuinely loves you is calling you out, that's very different, right? If someone knows you, knows your heart, and is calling you out, like we've been friends for over a decade. If you sit me down and you say, Christina, I love you. And that's how you would say it. I know you would. I love you. I adore you. I think you're an awesome mom. And I'm coming from a place of love. And I hope you can hear it that way. I saw the way you spoke with one of your kids. And I just don't think it was productive. And I don't know how you would word it, but I know you would word it perfectly. Because I'm pretty sure you've called me out on my crap, which is good. That's what a good friend does. That's different. Like, I am going to listen to you and I'm going to hear it because I know where you're coming from. And I know you know me. You know my heart. That's very different. And the other difference is it wouldn't be shame. You would not be throwing shame at me, right? So I don't even remember what the question was. What was the question about? How do you...
Why does parenting come with so much shame from others when I'm genuinely...
Yeah, it comes with... You know what? Parenting comes with shame because people are freaking insecure. They're insecure about their own choices, so they're going to shame yours because it makes them feel better about their own. That's what happens.
That is true.
Like when I've said certain things about, like I have chosen from before I had kids that I would not spank my kids. Oh my gosh. The people that throw the most shame at me are the people who ends up like that's their go-to. I'm going to hit my kid and they feel bad about it. And now they're going to shame me. Right. Now, again, this isn't a discussion on spanking. We can talk about that another time. But the point is, so often when we are shamed by somebody, it is coming from somebody you would never actually respect or go to advice. That woman that wrote that comment on my social media, I would never go to her for advice. Right. Now, especially now that I know how her kids feel about her, I would never go to her advice. So why would I take that seriously? So we have to just learn to say no, thank you. We have to, whoever's shaming you, whether it's a stranger on social media or whether it's your own mother, if it's said in a way where you know it's not coming from a place of genuine care, love, concern, then I want you to pretend they're handing you a suitcase. And I want you to literally stop being a bellhop and do not pick it up.
And I suppose even if you feel like it is something that's coming from their genuine heart, maybe they see it a certain way, but you see it differently, then I feel like you've got to be able to say, no, thank you, in the fact that I've chosen a different way for myself and my family.
Absolutely. We had a question, voicemail question.
We sure did.
By the way, if you guys want to, do you have the phone number somewhere?
I sure do.
If you want to call and leave a voicemail with a question that we can play during a podcast, it can be on any topic. We have an episode coming up on divorce and co-parenting. I mean, there's so many different things, but on any topic, the phone number is 855-912-4175. And while we're at it, before you play that, if you have specific questions on this topic, like you wish you could call in live right now and ask, if you watch this episode on my app, Hope and Humor Daily, you can actually ask a question in real time in the chat and it will give you an answer. Every single question gets answered. Anyway, just wanted to
Okay, I'm going to play this question
Let's go.
From Doug in Rancho Cucamonga.
Hi, Christina. My name is Doug. I'm from Rancho Cucamonga, California. And I just had a quick question about, like, as a dad, I constantly feel this pressure of, like, I don't know, like having everything under control for my kids so that they see that, I've got it all together. and I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody has it all together all the time. How do I deal with that kind of pressure? All right, thanks.
I think this is very relatable, and I think it comes from this idea we have that we parents have to be some sort of like superheroes that have it all figured out at all times.
And we can't let our kids see us mess up.
Yes. You know what? I feel like when I mess up, I didn't feel this way when I was younger. It took me a while to get there. I feel like when I mess up, I'm actually doing my kids a favor because I'm showing them that they never have to be perfect. Like I kind of started almost making it into, like it was a way to lighten it for myself, to not be so mean to myself. When I mess up, I'm like, oh, my kids are so lucky that they have a mom who just gave them an example of being clueless or making a mistake. And by the way, I think there's something really powerful in telling our kids, hey, man, I screwed up. Let's talk about it. Because how are they going to learn to own their own stuff? I said before how I believe that a genuine, consistent, I love you cannot exist without at least an occasional, I am sorry. Because that's love, right? That's love, teaching our kids that they don't have to be perfect. We're not perfect, willing to own our stuff, apologizing. But also maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it's just like the dad, Doug, is overwhelmed and it's just too much. How amazing to be able to tell your kid, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. It's a hard day today. So I'm going to take some time for myself. I know I promised you that we would play a game. We're going to do that later today, or we're going to do that tomorrow. But I got to take some time for myself. And I got to lay down right now, or I got to, whatever it is, right? That is powerful. Now, there is a fine line, right? I don't think it's healthy for our kids to see us constantly upset and stressed out and bawling and right. Our kids can't carry that stress. So there has to be a fine line of like, there's certain things you only go to your friends for, right? If you're, I don't know, let's say you're going through a divorce and you're having financial struggles and you're worried that you're going to lose your home. You're not going to tell your 5-year-old that, right? Like that stuff you're going to go to your friends or therapist or whoever for. But just letting our kids see us as humans who get tired, who get overwhelmed, who don't have all the answers, who mess up, that's healthy as long as we always follow it up with, and this is what I'm going to do right now that'll be helpful to me. Like one example I've used before is how I struggle with anxiety. And for a while, I thought I had to hide that from my kids because I didn't want them to be, if they see me anxious, Now, if I'm having like really, really, really bad anxiety where I think it's unhealthy for my kids to hear all that, no, I'm not going to go vent to them about it. But there have been so many times where we're just sitting at dinner together and just having a conversation about, whatever, small talk. And I'll randomly say, by the way, I woke up this morning, I had really bad anxiety. I just felt it. And so what I did was I went for a walk because that always helps me. And then I journaled. And then I actually called my therapist because I was supposed to see him next week, to see if I could meet with him earlier. And I immediately just felt better. You're just taking those few proactive steps. So now my kids are aware that having these feelings or struggling with things is normal, but also that I'm going to be proactive about it. And now it's not a scary thing. It's not adding stress to them like, oh, mom's anxious, just sort of verbalizing, communicating it to them in a normal, I'm a human and sometimes I need a break and sometimes I'm clueless. I don't think our kids should see us as people that have to always have it all together. What is that teaching them for when they're parents? And I wonder if Doug's parents always held it all together. And, I'm just making an assumption here, but a lot of us grew up with parents that never showed us when they were struggling, right? And if we never saw it, then we thought this is the role a parent plays. This is what a parent is supposed to be like.
And if I'm not perfect, then I'm doing it wrong or something's wrong with me.
Yes, because my parents seem perfect. No, your parent was hiding in their closet, bawling their eyes out, possibly drinking too much, or in my case, eating way too much ice cream, right? Like, no, there is not one parent that has always held it all together. That's not possible. Again, let's normalize having bad parenting days. Let's normalize not having all the answers. Let's normalize being clueless. We have to normalize this stuff. Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, I have so many parenting dilemmas where I just feel clueless about what to do. She didn't go into what those parenting dilemmas were.
And again, this totally goes with the theme of feeling pressure, right? Like I cannot be clueless. Is that the word she used? Clueless?
Clueless,
I
yeah.
cannot be clueless. Okay. I'm going to answer this quickly because we're running out of time. But the one thing I've always found in any parenting dilemma, when I am completely like stuck, curiosity and connection, it's always led me somewhere good, right? A lot of times when we feel clueless, we go into anxiety mode, we go into panic. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And that throws us into fix it mode and control it mode. Whew, that's going to go downhill, right? When we're coming from that place of fear and control and panic and putting that energy out there, our kids are like, what is happening, right? And then they shut down even more. We get clouded and we don't know, we can't think rationally. So what I found, because I still get clueless pretty much daily, is if I focus on just curiosity and connection. So if it's something with my teen, just really getting curious, as I call it, standing in awe of their story. What's going on? What's underneath this behavior? What do I need to learn here? What do I need to know? And then focusing on connection. How can I feel connected to my kid? How can I make sure my kid feels connected to me? Not for some reason, because there's obviously many ways to explain this psychologically, but curiosity and connection has always been the key to even just a tiny step forward, or at least not making things worse. And then also, let's be okay with the fact that being clueless doesn't make us bad parents.
We're not going to know everything.
I mean, if you told me you know everything, we can't be friends because you're a freaking liar and you're
Right.
fake. Okay? Like we are going to be clueless, not because we're inadequate, because we're human. All right. Oh my gosh, we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
You can learn more and get more support on the app Hope and Humor Daily. Also, you can find me on social media at Christina Kuzmic, Kuzmic, Christina with a K, pretty much everywhere.
And definitely call and ask us questions because we want to hear your questions. And the phone number is 855-912-4175.
I love you all. Can you do me a favor this week and just ditch the pressure? Like when you feel that pressure coming of like, I have to be this and I have to know this and I have to do it this way and blah, blah, blah. Can you just be like, no, thank you. No, thank you. There was one thing I wrote down that I wanted to say that I wrote in my second book because of all the pressures that come on. It's hard to be a good parent when you're chasing someone else's definition of good. It's hard to be a good parent when you're chasing someone else's definition of good. So ask yourself, whose definition of good are you chasing? Is it that person on social media? Is it something you heard from some other parent that you may not even really respect and go to for advice? What is your definition of being a good parent? Chase that. Do that. I love you all. Bye. I need some coffee.